Hesh, I have a question for you. Are product and CRO finally getting closer together?
I guess I wouldn't say finally. Maybe there was similarities between them before. I think in the ways roles are being defined now. Maybe they are in terms of job descriptions, like active day to day. But if you look back, maybe there were always some similarities in the way things are done. Anyways, it's like the first step is user research, getting insights, and then what you do with that as the following steps. So yeah, maybe the similarities were always there. I guess how you process that information and what you do with it in terms of like,
Right.
we do this, or I'm targeting to fix this problem. CRO in like the name itself points to part of the problem, maybe why these were separated. Conversion rate, well, product, and maybe didn't have that problem in terms of a role definition by title, by mere virtue of title. Sorry.
No, that's a great point. And I think CRO, the name, is definitely a huge part of the problem, if you ask me, because even within what's traditionally CRO, just calling it CRO stopped making sense a long time ago. When you moved from landing pages and just getting people to sign up or do whatever, when there was one metric to track. I mean, what's up with AOV, like revenue per user? Like, there's so many other metrics that when you just say I'm doing CRO, no, just the name is wrong. Yeah. I think product doesn't have that problem.
Yeah, and it's like it covers more part as well. It's like where CRO also like maybe falls more on the marketing side, website maybe, and then like product is more like looking at everything from monetization, activation, retention as well. Right. So like the scope, the initial scope in terms of how you look at it, maybe that didn't help in the past. But I think the roles themselves maybe were a lot closer together than it appeared. I think also with what's been happening with CRO and slowly like expanding the scope to experimentation, and I was talking with Ruben de Boer about this a lot. I think this time last year, and we were talking about like how that role is changing, how CROs and experimentation, people from that industry are slowly moving more towards in-product retention, pricing, monetization, and it's slowly like merging. And you mix growth roles in that as well. Like, there's a lot of overlap with this stuff, also with UX and design. And I think the post by Ben LeBay recently, where he has this kind of 3 Venn diagram balls and they're like merging together. I think the context of that post was like how AI is accelerating that development, because just you can do more stuff. And when you can do more stuff, that means you have more capacity to do more things. And maybe some of those things maybe are traditionally, let's say, on the other side of the Venn diagram. So everything's kind of getting squished together over time.
It's getting squished together. Also skill gaps that people had. And I know CXL years ago used to write a lot about T-shaped marketers. Being a T-shaped anything, or like some version of T-shaped, is so much easier now with AI and AI agents and filling those skill gaps that maybe I don't know how to write copy and I will never beat a professional copywriter, but I'll get a good starting point that I can work with or someone else can work with. So all that, I think, is pushing people away from traditional narrow roles within CRO, within UX or whatever. You mentioned going from CRO to experimentation, and this is super interesting, rebranding of CRO, whatever. Why do you think that's starting to happen? Like, why are more and more people referring to it as experimentation now and not like 5 years ago?
Well, I think maybe 5 years ago people were. I think it's to tackle the problems we've been talking about, like the role that
it was intentional.
Yeah, and the expansion of scope. Like maybe people were advocating for this from before. It's just the role, and like maybe just to communicate the role and precision. Like would have to dig into like how that solidified as CRO role. But like when you go back to the T-shaped marketer thing, I think I don't think we didn't come up with it. So
you were pushing that concept.
Yeah, wouldn't say that's the only reason or one of the reasons that experimentation is becoming more useful language. But I think it's just about trying to expand the role beyond the metric. I think that's the main reason, because you do so much more than that as a CRO, quote unquote. And I think that's, for me at least, what I understand to be like the main the main driver behind that.
I think CRO traditionally, 10 years ago, when it early days of CRO, someone makes a website and then the CRO person walks in to fix the website, make it work better, make it less bad even.
Yeah.
Now with product mindset and with experimentation, CRO almost like feels like it should be in the room from day one, from the first meeting about any project. Do you think that's happening?
I think as the role got more established, you get like the value it brings gets more surfaced, and then you can probably bring things that you have learned into early stages. But
Right.
I think that is a good idea to do, because there's certain people that teach conversion design, and nobody likes best practices. But if you're just doing it as a starting point, like there are some like guidelines and frameworks of things like you shouldn't. There's certain UX principles that are there for a reason. And like, it depends what your starting point is also. Like if you are going really from zero, like there is no research whatsoever, maybe having a CRO person or an experimentation minded person there would force the issue and say, well, okay, before you ship something, there are ways to validate it or validate your assumption. And then that's where the overlap between CRO and product, I think, is interesting, because you would do that as a product person. You'd be like, okay, we don't know anything about this. What are the assumptions that we're making? You would map out like the flow and be like, okay, this is each step of the flow. These are the assumptions under each step. Then you would map them on like a 2-axis, like strong evidence, weak evidence, impact.
Right.
And that you would isolate the ones that have a really strong impact and you have the least evidence for. And then you would start designing assumption tests. Some of these could be A/B tests. Some of these could be research or analytics focused questions, smoke tests, anything that you could pinpoint an assumption that would have a high impact on what you are doing that you don't have much evidence for. And doing that like doesn't necessarily need to take a lot of time. So I think having CRO, experimentation, product, whatever people from the very beginning of the process could help you like just de-risk or not waste time doing things you probably don't need to do.
I completely agree with that. And also, it's what you said. It sounds like CRO is maturing, basically, taking lessons from product.
Or vice versa, and it's like a loop.
Yeah.
Like, like I wouldn't. It makes it sound like one has more than the other. It's like, I don't even think it's that. I think they both do things that are very similar, and they're like feeding into each other.
And that's the biggest lesson from this conversation. They're more similar. I wouldn't say identical, but they're very. The process and the mindset is almost identical, and that's why it's a logical step for product and CRO to work closely together.
I think with CRO as well, because of the metric and like what it was associated to, specifically more around A/B testing, there tends to be that like focus on A/B testing is like the only way. I wouldn't say that's the only way that they're used, but like when it's said quickly, your association goes there. But that's also not true. Like the tool set is getting bigger, and like maybe with the introduction of AI, like there's even more option and scope to like open up the ways you test and validate stuff. So I think they're just evolving so fast, and the overlap is getting so much bigger, and like the skill gap is getting smaller, and the tools you have at your disposal to be able to execute more of the other skill set you didn't have is getting easier, and things are just developing really, really rapidly, and it's
Excellent
exciting.
point. I agree. The mindset and the way to get to that final goal is just from two different sides, but product and CRO, basically, like they should hang out more.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, man. Thank you.